And there we figured out the land of Zoom, always challenging to me. Anyway, Trusting the Gold by Tara Brach. I just got this book and I'm very excited to read it. I haven't read much of it yet, but there's all little stories in it. And if you know Tara Brach, she's an amazing meditation teacher. She's been around for teaching meditation for decades, and she's very wise. And I learned yesterday why she titled the book Trusting the Gold. And it's a beautiful story that there's this Buddha in Southeast Asia somewhere that was plaster, and the plaster was starting to crack, and they couldn't, a repairman, I guess, came to try to figure out what they could do to try to heal and repair the plaster. And when they looked more deeply, the plaster was covering this beautiful gold Buddha. And so, of course, they painstakingly moved all the plaster off, and it's this gorgeous Buddha. And, who knows why it was covered up in plaster. Probably the thought is that it was to protect the Buddha from vandalism or crime during some wartime or whatever. So now it's this beautiful Buddha that people go to see in Southeast Asia. I'm not exactly sure where it is, but the reason she titled the book that was that, oftentimes we, just like that, form layers of protection around ourselves to protect what's inside, the treasure that's inside of us, the wholeness and the purity of our spirit that's inside of us. And through all the challenges that we experience in life, we tend to put a little bit of armor here and a little bit of armor here, and before we know it, we've really covered up the truth of who we are underneath layers and layers of guarding and protection. And our vulnerabilities are where our most humanness live, right? And so what can we do to start to peel away some of those layers so that we can expose ourselves and risk being wounded in some way, that the value of ourselves being shown to the world is worth the risk of some wounding. So close your eyes and think about that, ways that perhaps you've had some physical guarding, maybe it's an injury that you've dealt with that you now have, a little bit of guarding around a joint or a part of you. Maybe it's an emotional wounding that you've experienced where, you guard around your heart, or however it shows up for you. And certainly we can have this in our mind states too, where, we choose, we're only going to think about this, and we're only going to, stay in this bubble here. So look at the ways in which the way you've covered yourself up has limited you physically in your range of motion, limited you emotionally in your capacity to be fully available with those you love, maybe limited you in your mind, in your perception and capacity to understand other people or yourself. So just notice that always these protective places come from good intentions often, but they have unintended consequences of isolation, separation, the loss of really knowing the truth of our divine nature. And this is one of the kleshas in the Yogic Sutra. The kleshas are the root causes of our suffering and pain. And one of them is the denial or the lack of knowing or understanding of our true nature as being connected and divine. So let your practice today serve the chipping away of the plaster, cultivating courage, awareness, openness. Let's find our breath come into the body. Compassion and kindness towards self are key elements to dissolving these layers. All right, so offer an intention for your practice. Maybe something around cultivating the courage to be vulnerable. Maybe something entirely different. All right, let's release the hands. Let's come on to our back to start practicing. Okay, so find your way onto your mat, onto your back. And whatever your mind and body are holding this morning, let's go ahead and just allow ourselves the opportunity to suspend the doing and come into the being. So if it feels good, stretch and lengthen. Reach one side, then reach the other side. Just have that sense of waking up the body. Okay. Feeling your way into the morning. You know, maybe it's not morning. Ruth, you're here, so it's nighttime there. But just sense into the morning energy here in Colorado. All right, and then let's go ahead and bring your knees into the chest and rock a little bit, swaying from side to side. Be very kind to your body. So see, you know, do you need to adjust anything for your joints? All right, let's circle the knees. Let's go one direction, 2 or 3 times. All right, then right knee into the chest, left leg long on the floor, and feel some movement of your ankles. Swivel around your joints. Jamie, I know you're here. We had a conversation last week about barometric pressure changes and weather changes and how it impacts injury sites in your body. So notice if you've got a nagging something going on in a place where you've had an injury because of the blustery wet weather. All right, and let's change sides. Left knee in, right leg long on the floor, and feel the mobility. So just let your feet roll around. Feel the length of your spine, the sense of freedom in the body. All right, then knees back in and sway, rock a little bit. Let's open up the knees, bring them back in. And open up the knees and bring them back in. All right, so let's start our practice a little unusual. Take the soles of the feet together and drop your knees out to the side for Sup Davada Kanasana. Now you can always take 2 blocks and stick them underneath your knees if you want a little support. Just feel into a little bit of awakening in your inner thighs, your pelvis, your hips. And then as you're ready, stretch your arms strongly up overhead, finding the breath. And then just gently press the outside edges of your feet into the floor. And, you know, the pinky toe knife edge of your foot. Just gently press both evenly. And just what lights up, what turns on. Just notice a little bit of work here. And then release that pressure. Bring your arms back down. Hold on to your knees with your hands. Bring them back in and draw your knees to your chest and rock again. All right, place your hands behind your head very gently. We're just going to wake up the core a little bit with just a little bit of bending and straightening through the knees. So I'm straightening one leg and bending the other. If this is too much work for your core to be able to sustain support for your back, then put your feet down on the ground and lift one knee up and and then place the heel down and then the other knee up. So just waking up the hip flexors, waking up the core, finding your breath. All right, and then relax and bring your knees in one more time. Find some rocking. It's always a little unusual to do core work first. All right, so take your elbows down onto the ground, fingertips pointing straight up toward the sky. Let your knees fall open to your hands. Okay, so you don't want to push your knees, and you want to keep your hands right over your elbows. Okay. All right, touch your toes again. So a little bit different sensation of Sup Davada Kanasana. And now we're just going to do some circles with our feet. So touch the toes and then create a giant circle and bring your feet back together again. So our feet are having mirrored circles to each other. And our hands are at our knees just to prevent us from going past where the placement of our knees should be. So really the action is happening in our hip joints and in the movements in our feet, but the action is in our hip joints. All right, let's go the other way. Notice if the other direction is simpler, easier, more difficult. I'm noticing my fingertips are right at my knees and I can feel a whole bunch of crunchiness going on. So just notice what you notice. Use your core. All right, and then relax and bring your knees into your chest and just notice if your hips are a little, woke. Have they woken up? Are they a little fatigued? Take your feet down onto the ground, hip width apart or wider, and let's just windshield wiper a little bit. Windshield wiper the knees. All right, starfish out your body. Stretch your limbs wide, reach into your fingers and your toes, wiggle them. And exhale, knees up, chin in. Couple more times. Spread your limbs out. Deep breath in. Exhale. Draw it in. One more time. The body expands. Exhale. The body contracts. All right. Come rolling over onto your side and come up onto your hands and your knees. So as we find cat-cows, just notice, where you are in space, ground through your hands as best as you can, and let's just start moving through the postures. Enjoy your spine. And let it move as freely as you can. Remember, kindness and compassion towards self go a really long way. If we are not kind in our thinking toward ourselves, we deny a sense of acceptance of ourselves. And really, we're trying to accept ourselves. So let's be kind. All right, so move your posture around. You can sway your hips. You can move your shoulders. You can move your head. Whatever feels good. And then stretch back towards child's pose. Walk the hands out in front of you. Inching your way forward. Drop your hips down toward the heels. Breathing deeply. Relax your neck. Inhaling. Exhaling. All right. Let's come back up onto all fours. Reach the left arm up to the sky. Find your breath. Exhale and slide that shoulder down. Come into a twist. Enjoy. Let your head rest on the floor and relax. Find your breathing. Inhale, reach that arm all the way back up again. Place the hand down onto the ground and find the second side. Arm up. Exhale, slide arm through. Breathing well. Feel the space between your shoulder blades. Enjoy. And then arm coming up. The arm coming down. Curl your toes under and find your way to dog pose. All right, so take your time here. You can pedal your feet. You can, take your dog for a walk. You can bend one knee and straighten the other knee and just get the calves, the Achilles, the feet, the hamstrings to open up very gently. And just enjoy. Maybe you want to come more into stillness. Just find your way into this posture and what feels good here. Extend through the spine. Stay rooted through your four corners of your hands. Relax your neck. Enjoy the fullness of your breath. Sit bones come up and high. All right, and then walk your feet forward and come into Uttanasana. Fold a bit. Okay. Halfway lift, the spine is growing. Exhale and melt again. One more time, halfway lift. And then exhale and relax. Ground into your feet. Push off your feet, rise up, drop your hips, lift your chest. Arms coming up to the sky. Open wide, spread open your wings. The collarbones spread and the chest opens. And then release your hands down. Shake out through your fingertips. Let all the edges of your body, all the way to your fingers, get a little bit of awakening and awareness. Take a deep breath in, open the chest. And then exhale and float forward. Relax your head. You can bend your knees as much as you want to. Inhale for a halfway lift. The sit bones stay high. The thigh bones move back, but the shin bones slightly move forward. Exhale and melt again. Let's step back to a lunge. Right foot forward, left foot back. Enjoy. So, we're just waking up the body, going through these movements that we do a lot. Enjoy when you touch one. Just enjoy coming home to a new sensation in the body. Breathe your way here. So as you bend your knee, open the hip flexors of the back leg. And as you straighten the front leg, enjoy the hamstrings stretching open. Drop your head. Stay inside the breath. As you feel the sensations of the body, imagine that, you're kind of peeling off some of those outer layers. The more we touch into sensation in the body, the more embodied we become. So this is good. This is what we want. All right, so find your way into a lunge. Rise up a little differently. We're going to keep our right hand on our thigh and stretch your left arm up and over to the side a little bit. Feel the sense of extension through your hip flexors, through your side waist. And we're going to reach that arm all the way over, put the elbow on the outer knee and cross the hand to the shoulder. Keep lifting the back thigh. Your knee can soften if you have a lot of hyperextension. Soften it. Feel the extension through your spine. Root into the big toe mound of your right foot so you're staying grounded. All four corners of your foot. Ground the heel down to support yourself. And then unwind, two arms coming up to the sky. Find the breath. And then release the hands down and step your back foot forward. Fold in half. Just let the body return to neutral. Relax your head. Halfway lift. Grow a little bit taller, a little bit longer. Exhale and melt. Ground through your feet. Feel the four corners of your feet, the big toe mounts, the pinkies, the inner and outer heels. Step your left foot forward, right foot back, lunging on this side. Just touch in with sensation. Feel the hip flexors of that back leg open. Start to move here, bending and straightening the front knee. Finding the breath. All right, so when you're ready, climb up. We're going to place our left hand on our thigh and reach the right arm over. So try, you don't want to tip so far. You're really trying to just find length instead of compression on the right or left side. We want to find length in the right side. Ground through your left foot. Feel the heel press into the ground so you kick on your glutes and your hamstrings. Feel the support of the back of your leg. And then as you're ready, cross the arm over, place your elbow on your knee. You can always put your hand on a block for a simpler twist if your body would prefer that. Okay, hand crosses over to the shoulder. Your other hand stays on your thigh to keep lifting you. Press your feet or your foot, your front foot. So ground through your heel. Turn your glutes and your hamstring on so that you support from all aspects. The spine grows, the breath is here. Hug to the midline. And then rise up. 2 arms to the sky, crescent lunge, reaching. Find that sense of space in the body. And then as you're ready, hands down onto the ground, dog pose. Breathing well. Deep inhale, deep exhale. All right, let's come forward into a plank. Hold yourself steady here. Hug toward the midline again. Inner thighs to the sky. Breathing. All right, put your knees down onto the ground and find your way to the floor. Roll the shoulders a few times. The beauty of yoga is there's just so much available, and we tend to move in so many different directions in our practice. So enjoy a back bend now. And then exhale and melt back down. Ground through your pelvis and legs. Reach up. The core is engaged as you do this. And then exhale. Relax one more time. Scoot over to the right side of your mat and bring your left knee up high toward your armpit and come to Sphinx Pose here. So we're back onto our forearms. Extend through the spine. Drop weight into your left hip. See if you can find that sense of grounding into the earth. Breathing well. Going to turn this into a twist. Lie down, open up, swing your left arm out and over, lift your right knee, or your left knee rather, up away from the floor. Find your breath. And then come back to center and find your way on the other side. So scooch over to the left side of your mat and let your right knee come up toward your right armpit. Sphinx pose with your upper body. And you can go lower. Just find a comfortable place for your back. See if you can drop the tailbone, lift the pubic bone. We're puffing into the lumbar spine a bit, so we're not sinking into a deep arch in the lumbar spine. Stretch through your legs, stretch through your crown, drop weight into your hip. And just notice, does one side feel different from another side? We're going to get into the hips a fair amount today. So just enjoy as we start to open them up. Go ahead and find your way into the twist. Turning your head to the right, feeling your right arm come toward the floor. Lift your right leg off the ground, or right knee, I should say. All right, and then relax and come back to center. Come up onto all fours. Move your spine around till you're in a happy place with your spine. And then take a really wide-legged child's pose. So bring your knees a couple, 3 inches wider than you normally do. And just stretch back. And you may not go as far. Maybe you go farther. Just find your way. All right. Come back up onto all fours. I think most of you have done this with me before. It's a little tricky, but let's see how we do. So the left foot is going to curl under and stretch back. Take an inhale. And as you exhale, lift your knee up toward your chest. Cross your foot over, your leg over the other, and drop down into the hips. And then inhale and stretch it back. Let's do that on the inhale. That might feel more natural. Inhale, lift your knee. Exhale, cross it over. Inhale, bring it back. Exhale back. I forgot to say change sides, so let's change sides. Foot back, knee up, and then cross one thigh over another side, drop back. Deep breath in, lift the knee, stretch on back. Switch sides, let's do each time one more time. Okay, lift your knee up, cross thigh over thigh. Come back. Knee to chest. Requires a fair amount of core. Stretch that foot back. Put your knee down. Change sides. Curl toes under on the floor. Take a deep breath in. Lift the knee toward the chest. Cross thigh over thigh. Drop back like child's pose. Knee back up. Unwind. Heel, toes on the floor. Lift to dog pose. Extend through the spine here. Find the breath. Let's turn our feet out. So this is weird, I know, but just see what it feels like to turn your toes out in this posture. Lift your sit bones. Oftentimes we feel an internal rotation in dog pose. Just see what it feels like to switch things around. Heart lifting toward the sky. Now turn your feet straight on the very edges of your mat. A nice wide dog pose. We're going to walk our hands back to a wide Uttanasana. Breathing in, full exhale. And now adjust your feet. We're going to come to a squat, a low squat, like an all the way down squat. Okay, so if garland pose is not available to you, there's a few options here. You can sit on a block. You can put a blanket underneath your heels. You can just choose to be higher. So just find your way into a squat that's comfortable for your body. You can put your butt against a wall. There's lots of things to support yourself. But if you're able to go deep, let's go deep. Okay, spread open your feet. Lift your chest. Find your breath. Ground through your feet. Notice if you tend to lean into one hip more than another hip. All right, place your hands down. Lift your hips high again. High, straight-legged pose. Relax. And then we're going to come on up. Turn your feet out now, a higher squat. So you might, your feet might want to be a little bit further, a little closer. Your toes might want to turn straight or turn out. Now our hips are in line with our knees and not dropping lower. Try to hug your muscles to your bones all throughout your legs. Especially if a knee or a hip is kind of problematic. Just go where your body is able to self-sustain. Ground through the four corners of your feet, and then isometrically spin your feet. Toes turning out, heels turning forward. Find the breath. All right, and then come all the way up to stand. Reach the arms to the sky. Bring your feet closer. Tadasana, mountain pose. Close your eyes for a moment. You can have your hands to your heart or your hands down at your sides. Feel that sense of grounding, breathing, staying very connected inward to the breath in particular, but really just all the sensations of the body. What does it feel like to have your feet on the ground right now? Are your knees unlocked? Drop some weight into the right foot. Let's turn our toes out, but our toes are going to stay on the floor. So tree pose with our toes on the floor. Instead of letting this hip hike out to the side, draw it in, find that sense of connection. Try to open up the left knee as much as you can. We're standing on our right foot. Reach the arms up. Finding the breath. Notice which muscles have to kick in to gear to hold your foot in this very externally rotated position. So for me, when I do this pose with my toes on the floor, the work in my hips is actually much greater than when I have my foot higher in tree pose. So experiment with different ways of doing things. Let's change sides. Drop weight into your left foot. Our toes are staying on the floor. We're turning our leg out. Try to stay grounded in your standing leg. So that left leg, instead of letting the hip pop out or move forward, see if you can keep the thigh bone back, the knee soft, and the hip hugging in. And then work with the external rotation of your right leg. Bring your arms wherever supports your breath. Relax the base of your skull. Ground through the four corners of your standing foot. And externally rotate that hip. Be very mindful to not push your knee back in your standing leg. All right, and then release and relax. 2 feet onto the ground. Rise up. Exhale. Fold forward. Halfway lift. Exhale and melt back down. Let's step our feet wide on the mat. So turn to the side edge and come on up to stand with your legs wide apart. Okay. Turn your feet out, goddess pose, and you decide, do you want to have your hands on your knees? Are you ready to take your hands off your knees? Do you want to be kind of up here high? Do you want to be super low? Try to find a place where there's symmetry. So, move some weight into your left and your right foot until you feel like, oh, that's even between my 2 feet, and adjust your body height to a place where you can sustain the evenness between your 2 legs. Turn the toes out, the heels move toward the front of your body so that we're working with those deep external rotators in the hips. Open up the chest, put your arms wherever you want them to be. Find your breath. Ground your feet, so press your feet 4 corners, moving into the earth and then spinning. And just notice if you have one leg that's a little stronger, more capable of that action than the other. All right, let's stand up straight and tall. Turn your feet forward and then just turn your right foot out. So the left foot can turn in a little bit. Grab a block. You need a block for this variation. Okay, so make sure you have one. We're going to, instead of coming into Batakanasana with our elbow on our knee, which we do all the time, we're going to take a block, and you can stack one block on top of the other block if you need extra height. We're going to put the block behind the calf. All right, and then try to move the calf, your shin, your knee, toward the arm and the block. Find that grounding. Let the back leg move a little bit. So if you need to internally rotate a little bit more, you do that. 4 corners of your feet down onto the ground. Feel the heel press. Feel the big toe press. Feel the pinky toe side of your foot press. And then stretch your arm when you're ready. What might it feel like to do the jar lid spinning, where your toes turn to the right and your heel goes left? Finding the breath. All right, so turn on a lot of those underbelly muscles. See what it feels like to hug your 2 feet toward each other, so that you feel the high fibers of your hamstrings. All right, and then let's rise up and turn our feet the other way. All right, so take the block with you. Remember, for all of these standing poses, the pelvis can turn toward the front leg as much as you need to. Gone are the days when we used to try to think about our body being in line with the long side of the mat. This is mostly impossible for us to do that. So let the front leg line up. You want your knee over your heel, in line with your middle toes, and sit bone on that same plane, so you're not caving the knee in. You want to have that line. And then place the block down, or blocks, plural if you need to, and put your hand on it. Take your leg and move it against your arm, against the block, against your hand, against your elbow, whatever it's touching. Find your way. Stretch your arm in the air. Ground through your front foot. So the more you press your heel, the more your hamstrings will turn on. Hug your 2 feet toward each other. See if you can spin the jar lid of that front foot. So the toes go left, the heel goes right. Feel the extension. This might be a little lower in the pose than when you have your elbow on your knee. So just notice where you are in space if it feels a little different. Finding your breath. All right, let's go ahead and find our way back up. Take the block with you to the first side, triangle pose. Now, for some of us, triangle pose feels best when our hand is really high, like up here on your thigh. And for some of us, it feels better when it's low. So go where your body really enjoys being, okay? Open up through your chest. And same, especially if you're hypermobile, if you tend to sink into your joints. See what it feels like to soften the knee, to ground through the big toe mound, to hug the feet toward each other so you're really working with the engagement of your hamstrings. Find the breath. Let's go ahead and come on up and find our way to the second side. Now, when we come into these postures over and over again, obviously we're being here now. We're bringing ourselves into our body. Try not to let the minutia, the details of the pose, take you away from the broadness of sensation in your body. So even though there might be specific cues to do, like press your big toe mound and scrub your feet toward each other or soften your knee, all these things, let them happen, but also keep track of the breath in the body. Keep track of your wholeness. Keep track of your kindness. What is the conversation? We all have conversations about ourselves, to ourselves, all day long. So, take stock. What are you saying about yourself to yourself? What's your internal gossip about yourself? We hear this. You can't escape the inner knowing of that voice. So we want to be kind. So police your thoughts just a little bit if you tend to be unkind toward yourself in any way. This is part of uncovering that plaster, the self-protection. We need to be vulnerable. We need to allow ourselves to accept all of ourselves, the parts we like and the parts we don't like. Okay, let's come out of there. Turn your feet straight and bring your hands down onto the blocks or block or floor. You can come all the way to the ground. So wherever you naturally go, let your back relax. Breathing deeply. I happen to have a block right here that my head's going on, so maybe you do too. Maybe your head is hanging. All right, so let's go ahead and drop weight into the right foot. Stretch your inner hamstring. You can go as deep as this, or if your knee flexion doesn't allow this, just go where your body goes. If you can't touch the floor because you're higher, you can put your hands on blocks. Okay, and then find your way over to the next side. Breathing well. Feel both the extension of your leg and the flexion of your other leg. All right, back to center. We're going to flip back to the front of our mat for dog pose. Enjoy. So maybe a little internal rotation this time. Maybe you want to turn your toes in and feel the sit bones roll up and wide. Find your breath. Come forward into a plank. Hold yourself steady. And then when you're ready, find the floor. Roll the shoulders, take a deep breath. Maybe Cobra Pose is not your pose today. Maybe you want to do a different pose. So find whatever is feeling great. And then exhale and melt. Come on up to all fours. Another, when you're ready for it, take your time. Another really wide-legged child's pose. Okay, so you might need 1 or 2 blankets and you need 2 blocks for where we're going next. Sit on something, whether it's 1 or 2 blankets, and then have your blocks. Okay, here, let me lean back a little bit so my mat's comfortable. So we're going to take the soles of our feet together in Batakanasana. Okay, hands behind you so that we just get comfortable being here. And then notice, are you high up enough? If you find yourself rolling back onto your sacrum and it's hard to keep the neutral pelvis and the long spine, then get yourself higher. Put more support underneath your sit bones. Okay, you can use your hands behind you to support. Lift your chest. See what it feels like to start opening up the feet. So pull the big toes away from each other for a moment. See if you can drop the knees down. We're not going to stay in that toe variation for very long, but just notice. And now bring the big toes to the big toe mounds to touch. Press the outer feet into the ground and lift the spine again. So outer toes moving into the earth. Big toe mounds, inner heels are touching. I don't know about you, but this makes me shake. Like there's work to be had in this, especially if you have tight internal rotators, which I do. like if your TFL is tight. Okay, so we're going to take a block now in between your feet. I'm on you can be on whatever width you want. So the skinniest width might be good for you. The middle width, don't go do one of those two widths. So you decide what feels best. And then once again, hands come behind you. And if you feel like you're having trouble keeping the neutral pelvis, lean back ever so slightly, like walk your hands further back. Once again, press the big toe mounds and the inner heels into the block. Press the pinky toe side of your feet into the ground and open up your knees. Drop them toward the floor. Feel the work of the outer hips. Okay, now we're going to put our feet up on top of the block. And so, you can put the block at whatever width feels good. You can use 2 blocks, whatever you want, or not 2 blocks in height, but 2 blocks in width. And we're gonna have our feet elevated. Now, if you can reach your feet and stay in a nice neutral spine, then that's a nice place to put your hands so that your feet don't slide. But if that makes you round and collapse through your pelvis and spine, better to keep your hands back to support you. All right, so find the breath, drop the knees, lift the spine. Where is the work coming from? The knees don't just, for some people, they just drop easy. But for those of us who are tight in this way, work a little bit to drop the knees. See what you can open up in the inner thighs, the hip flexors. See if you can let them relax. Press the pinky toe side of your feet into the ground or into the block. Okay, now keep that one block. Second block, the first block is going to be like this. The second block is the skinny width right on top, so there's a little ledge for your feet. Now, once again, if you're real rounded in this pose, better to put your hands behind you so you have a neutral pelvis and a long spine. All right, so round into the outside edges of your feet, press into the block, and open up your knees. Notice if your feet want to do different things. Like for me, my left big toe wants to pull away from the block, and my right big toe wants to touch the block. So just notice what your tendencies are. And you can try pushing your big toe mounds into the block. You can try pulling your big toes away, all the while grounding the pinky toe side of your feet into the block that you're on, not the block in between your feet. Okay, and then relax and just notice, how's your breath? Did you get all trapped up? This is a lot of work to open your hips this way. Come back to Batakanasana. Soles of the feet together. Okay, and just give yourself a little inner arch massage. It's rare that we get our feet to get some love. Okay. All right, and then place your hands behind you and notice if your Batakanasana has changed. If your knees are a little bit lower to the ground than they sometimes are, now press the outside edges of your feet into the ground and let it help you lift your spine. Okay, knees into chest. Give yourself a hug. Find the breath. And then stretch your legs out. Just give them a little rock. You can bounce your knees. You can swing your legs. Just let your legs get easy for a moment. And then we're going to come into Firelog Pose. Now, if this pose is not for you, that is, actually, let's do reverse Pigeon Pose first. So come onto your back. Okay, right foot on top of left knee and reach back and grab either your hamstring or your shin. And always you can put your foot against a wall or a piece of furniture so your arms don't have to do anything. So your choice in how you go about this. Let's see if we can get that feeling of pressing the outside edges of your right foot into the left thigh. Feel the work in the outer hip. Open up the sit bones, widen them apart, feel the gap under your back so that we're in a neutral lumbar spine instead of a rounded lumbar posterior curve. How is your breath? Are you sensing your global self? All right, and then relax You can starfish out your body if you want. And then knees in and come to the second side. So now the left foot is on top of the right knee. You can hold the shin, or you can hold the hamstring, or you can put your foot against a wall, or put a strap around your calf, or your shin, whatever feels good. Finding the breath. Now, flex your foot in the air. So we're pressing through the big toe and the inner heel, and we're grounding the outside edge of your foot into your thigh, into your right thigh. Find the length of your spine. The curve of your low back is a little off the floor, just a little bit. Sit bones are wide. All right, release that. Starfish out your legs and your arms. Maybe internally and externally rotate your legs while you're out here. Just let them loosen. Okay. All right, now we're going to roll over and come into Firelog Pose. Okay, so it's not everybody's favorite pose, I know. So there's always a plan B. So we're going to take our right leg on top of our left leg. Now, if you end up and you're like, okay, here I am, and this is what you feel like and look like, then this is not for you, right? So you need to lean back and put your hands on the ground and maybe pick up that foot and put it on the floor. So you're in kind of like a seated version of reverse pigeon pose where you can really lift and open the chest. So that's one variation of Firelog. The next is to be sitting upright, where the knees start to descend a little bit more. If you're almost there, but still not super comfy, this is a nice place for blocks. You can stick blocks underneath places to help you have a little support. Now, if you're in this posture and your inner right ankle is all wrinkled up, stretch through the inner heel, stretch through the big toe, erase the ankle wrinkles. Press the outside pinky side of your foot into your opposite leg. Lift the spine. Now, if you want a little bit more, take your hands next to you, lift your body weight up, and stick your sit bones back behind you. Have a little anterior tilt to the pelvis. If you want a little more, you can start to go forward and lean forward. So remember, we're not rounding, we're not rolling back on our pelvis and rounding our spine. We're neutral toward anterior tilt of the pelvis, and the spine is long. If you want more, there's always less, there's always more. If you want more, put your hands on your feet and press into your hands with your feet and give yourself a little PNF stretch, engage, and then release and extend a little bit further. And then repeat it. Press, breathe, and then release and go a little further. So just go where your body says go and not where it doesn't say go. Outside edges of your feet pressing into legs and floor. Big toes, side of your foot is stretching. Okay, let's come out of there. And if you feel like, uh-oh, I can't move, I'm stuck, maybe you went a little too far, right? Stretch your legs out, shake your legs. Maybe internally and externally rotate them. Let the femur bones relax. Let your hip flexors relax. And then we're going to come to the second side. So now our left foot is on top of our right leg, around your knee. Take a change. You can always lean back and take that foot out for a seated reverse pigeon pose. But if you're coming into Agni-stambhasana, be very mindful of what your top foot is doing. So erase the wrinkles. Try not to collapse the foot. We don't want the foot on the inside edge of the thigh. We want the foot on top of the thigh. Outside edges of your feet, rooting down. You can support, you can put blocks and various things to support you. If you are able to go deeper, first try putting your hands down, lift yourself up, and move your sit bones back behind you. Stick your stingers out. Lift the spine and start to move forward with a long spine and a neutral toward anterior tilt of the pelvis. If you have something more to give to this posture, and how do you know if you have something more to give? Breathe, be here, relax. Are you stable? Are you free? Are your joints calm? Do you have the capacity to find ease? Is there, or are you fighting yourself? Okay, so search for the ease before you search for the depth. Only get deeper when your body has a measure of ease attached to the posture. Press your hands and feet into each other if you are going deeper, and then release it. So it's about 20-30% of your effort. It's not, huge effort, but it's enough to flex some of the muscles that we're stretching, so that when you release, there's a little bit more give in those muscle fibers. Hips hold a lot of stuff. It's just true. They're very stable joints. They can hold a lot of unconscious tension of this guarding that we have. A lot of times we think of guarding as our heart or our neck and shoulders, but really our hips can guard a lot. So let's just notice how we are in our hip joints. Unwind that posture, go bend it off fast, bend it off slow, whatever you prefer. Bring your legs not super far out yet, and just let your legs find their way. Breathing deeply. Okay, we're going to take the legs a little bit wider. You don't have to go to your extreme. And then maybe you have blocks that stack up, where you have height that supports you. So find, all the different ways, that you can support height for your head, either head resting on hands or on block. Let's go ahead and come on up out of the pose and lie down on your back. We're going to take a block underneath our pelvis. For a supported bridge, you can go as high as you want. If you want to go super high, just stack 2 blocks on top of each other. We're just going to open our hip flexors. So play around with this. You can stay in a supported bridge with your feet on the floor and your knees bent. Maybe you want to straighten your legs. Maybe you want to have your legs close, hip width apart. Maybe your legs want to be wider with your heels on the ground. Maybe you want one knee up and one heel down, and then switch. Maybe you want to draw one knee all the way to the chest or toward the chest while the other leg is straight. So experiment with opening up the hip flexors in the way that your body handles best. Okay, so be very mindful of your spine. For many of us, that means just being very neutral in a supported bridge pose. Breathing in, exhaling all the way. All right, now feet down, put the block on the low height if you are, or higher. Draw your knees to your chest. We're going to cross one. No, let's not do that. Let's just come out. Just go ahead and bring your pelvis to the floor. If you have a blanket handy or a bolster, you can try doing a twist with some height underneath your pelvis. That might feel really nice. And if you're doing that, so simple twist. If you're doing that when your knees go off to the side, you might want to block underneath your knees if you're having some height under your pelvis. This is a nice way of doing the practice. If you have a bolster, putting a bolster under your pelvis, across your pelvis and twisting, it's just a nice, unique way of doing a twist. Right? But if you are elevated with your pelvis instead of being on the floor, have a block to put underneath your shin as you twist. Now, when you're here, if you're inclined, you can straighten the top leg and hold your big toe or hold your pants or your shin, and you don't have to do that. You Just have your knees together and relax. Okay, come back to a neutral pelvis. Scoot your hips the other way, and we're going to drop over to the other side. Support with a block under your shin if you have height under your pelvis. If you're flat on the ground, you certainly can use a block if you want to, but you may not need it. Find your breathing. Open up your ribs, open up the pelvis, the sides of the pelvis. Maybe you want to straighten the top leg, keep the knees together if you're doing this. All right, come out of the pose. Bring your knees to your chest. Whether you're on the floor or up on the bolster or blanket, bring your knees to your chest. Okay, so as we come into Savasana, I would recommend having your legs up a little bit. So if you don't have a bolster, you can take 2 blocks long ways against each other and then a blanket on top of them for underneath your knees or thighs, or wherever is comfortable. Perhaps you have a chair or a couch, and you could put your calves up on the surface of your couch or chair. You want your hips to relax. So sometimes having your knees bent can give you a little bit more ease. All right, so find your breath. Kindness toward yourself. The courage to be vulnerable. Shavasana is so much about being okay just as you are, accepting and surrendering just as you are in this moment. Can you imagine that you are sloughing off all the layers that are unnecessary? Like you were just buried in sand at the beach, and then you went into warm water and felt all the sand come off of you. What's left? Breathe into this deep, perfect, pure place. Can you sense your divine nature? Can you believe in your divinity? Can you believe in the connection you have to all beings? Begin to deepen our breath. Find movement that serves you. As you come onto your side, be very mindful to maintain the grace of Savasana. See if you can keep that energy as you come to sit. Place your palms together at your heart. And let's offer our practice. Share your energy. Namaste. Thank you, everyone.